Hey guys, this is a review of what we covered in week 2 hip hop production. Just to review, a couple of folks missed the session, and a couple of folks asked for a little bit of a review. So you're going to want to open Edsp, go to the loops section here, this week 1 loops link. It's also pinned on the side, and open up the Push It loop. Push it. Okay. And you're also going to want to go back to Edsp and open up this link to the Soundtrap studio. There's already a session created for you with this sort of skeleton. So what we're going to be doing today is doing a little bit more work on the layering and really listening that we were doing beforehand. And sort of in future weeks, we'll be moving on to synths and really working on your own music. But again, for now, this is a good way just to learn our way around the studio a little bit better. So the track region that I've got here, the first thing that we're going to want to do is loop it so that that we're consistently working in the same space. So move your cursor over to the right here. You can click this loop arrow, or you can click directly on the bar at the top. And I'm going to move the cursor to fit the 4 bars that we're working with here. Okay, and I'm closing that out. So that's going to give us that. And let's have a listen. Okay, so this bass region is really just giving us a skeleton of the loop that we've got. And I'm already hearing a few different discrepancies between what we have and that. So this is an acoustic kit that we've got loaded up here, but it sounds to me like there's an electronic bass drum layered on it to give it a little bit more depth. Okay, so let's isolate that first. We're gonna add an electronic bass drum onto that. So you're gonna add a new track. Drums and beats. That's going to give us a new track lane, and we're going to add a bass region just by moving our cursor over and adding that. Okay, and I'm going to extend the length of it to fit the same 4 bar sort of region that we already have. Okay, let's leave this as vanilla. This is our 808 emulator in the Soundtrap, and I'm going to go over to piano roll. Okay. So rather than inputting all those bass drum hits, I've already got them in this original skeleton track. If I go to piano roll, I can see them here at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all those. I'm going to copy and paste them into the 808 section. And I can do that by clicking and dragging the cursor over that. It's going to grab all of them. So make sure that you can see all 4 bars of your loop. You can use the zoom function at the bottom right corner here to see that. Okay, so once I've highlighted and grabbed them all, I'm either going to right click and hit copy, or I can hit Control C, Command C. Those are all going to give us that copy function. Okay, I come down to my vanilla region here, and this purple, before I paste it, this purple cursor is showing where I currently am tracking in the region. So I'm going to want to make sure this is right at the beginning. I can either grab it and pull it over, or I can hit enter a couple times and it's going to jump there. Okay, so once I've moved my cursor there, I'm in my piano roll on the new track. I'm going to hit Control V or Command V if you're on Mac, or right click, paste. Okay, and that'll populate those, as you can see sort of in the top here. Those all line up with those lower bass drum hits. So let's have a listen to what that sounds like. Here's the new kick isolated. This headphone marker here is our solo button. Okay, so that's pretty weak as it is, but what we can do in our piano roll, it's showing this kick drums lining up with this C note. If I scroll right below it, I start to get these lower pitched 808s and some alternate sounds. So I'm going to find something that works for us a little bit lower. I'm going to grab all these notes. I'm going to pull them down. Okay, so that's sounding good. Let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, so they're definitely hitting a little bit harder. I'm gonna get a little bit more of that tone though of the actual 808, the pitch that it's actually hitting. So with all of these notes still selected, I'm just gonna grab the right side. My cursor changes, and I'm actually gonna extend the length so that they sound for that full measure. Okay, now I'm getting a little bit more of a tone. Let's hear what it sounds like in context. I'll unsolo. All right, so that's sounding pretty good. It's not perfect, but we're not going for perfect. I'm just trying to put everything, all the pieces into the right position. And then once we get into more of a mixing stage, that's when we can isolate those variables and make it a little bit nicer. Okay, so that's sounding good. Let's hear what else I can add to this. Okay, so listening to that snare, that's a lot different from what we've got here. Let's just solo our original. So this original one's really dry. It's still got a lot of attack, but it's short. Whereas this one, it's got a little bit more of a tail to it. So whether that's a quality of the acoustic instrument or if that's an after effect, I'm not sure. But we can recreate that by adding a little bit of what's called reverb. And reverb comes from the word reverberation. It's sort of a short echo or the sound that you might get if you were to clap in a concrete room or a room with solid walls. A little bit different from the echo that you might experience if you're in a big cavernous open space and you yell, and you can actually have you can actually hear back what it is you've done. This is a closer, faster echo. So I'm going to add that to the snare drum. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add a new track where we're going to layer a different snare drum onto it first and foremost. So in the same way I grabbed those snare drum hits from above, I'm going to do the same here. I move my cursor into the track lane, create a new bass region, extend that over, come up to my groove track, and here's my snare drums hits. So I'm going to grab all those. They're on beats 2 and 4. So when I come down here, back into my piano roll, I don't want this cursor to be right at the beginning as it was before. I'm going to move it to beat 2 and 4. And remember, if I'm looking up at the top here, I can see all these different ticks. So we have our chord notes, 8th notes, 16th notes. The chord notes are what are giving me that 1, 2, 3, 4 count. So I can see pretty clearly 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So here's my 2. I'm in my vanilla kit here again. On the bottom, the 3rd track, I paste that in. That's giving me my 2 and 4. Now, I don't think they're an electronic sounding snare. I'm going to make this an acoustic kit. Instrument. Okay, over here into Machines Vanilla, and let's make that the clean white kit. Clean white. Let's hear what that sounds like. So it's got a bit of a tail. I'm going to add an after effect now just to give it a little bit more reverb. I go into effects, and I'm pulling up this says room. So this is gonna, if I pull down this menu here, this is showing me a whole bunch of different options of the kind of reverb that I'm using, whether it's sort of like a church space or a closed room. So let's experiment. Let's try a hallway. Let's see what that sounds like. When I turn it up, it's gonna get pretty drastic, and I don't think it needs to be that much, but we can have a little bit of fun with it. Let's leave it there for now. Hear what that sounds like in context. So I'm going to exit out of this and unsolo it. Okay, maybe it is a bit much. Let's leave it there for now, okay? So that's sounding pretty good. Again, not perfect, but it'll work for us. So let's add another track. We're going to get the last couple samples that are in here. Aha, what track is complete without cowbell? So let's add the cowbell in. I'm going to add a bass region just like before, and I'm going to put in this rhythm that I'm hearing. Let's hear what it is. Okay, 1, 2, two, so it's after beat 2. Sounds like it's on the and of 2, which would be the third eighth note. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's actually also moving. I moved my cursor up here, but it's moving the dots here. So again, I've got 4/16 notes, 4, 4, 4, or every other one's going to be my eighth note. Every 4 is going to be my chord note. So here's my 1 and 2 and there's no cowbell when I do this drop down menu. So I'm just going to use anything for now, and then we'll move that into place. Let's use this hi-hat. 1 and 2, ba 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 ba. Okay, let's hear what that sounds like. Sounds right. Okay, let's change the instrument to an acoustic kit, because that's where we're going to find our cowbell. Let's use clean black. Okay. Okay, go into the piano roll now. All right, and we're going to use this. We're going to filter through these piano keys on the left just to find the sound we're looking for. Okay, so it's on this A flat, so that's A flat 3. Excuse me. A flat 3. So I'm going to grab all these notes and pull them up to that A flat. Okay, let's hear what that sounds like. Oh, I think they shifted over. Let's get these back in to the spot. There we go. Let me hear that. Good. Okay, so now I'm going to loop this. I'm going to grab the top right corner where I've got the same arrow as we were using before there. I'm going to grab that and pull that over, and that's going to save me having to cut and copy and paste all of these. So this is going to create sort of a bass region and then a shadow region where if I make any changes to this, it's going to automatically populate all the rest of these. So that's good in some contexts, especially if you've got a piece of music where you've got the same loop happening over and over again, or even in a specific part, whether it's the bridge or wherever you might choose to move that. But if we listen back, okay, the third time that happens in here, it sounds like it just stops on beat 1. But if I take it out over here, I can't actually change that. So what we're going to need to do is actually split the regions, okay? So I'm going to grab my cursor. I'm going to bring it over to this right on the top of the third bar, okay? And I'm going to right-click and hit Split Region, or Control-E, Command-E on Mac, okay? Split Region. Now, and I'm going to do the same thing at the fourth. Okay, so now this region is isolated by itself. I can take these notes out, and it's not changing the rest of them. I could do the same in piano roll. Okay, I could delete them if they were there. Take them out. So you'll see in the piano roll right now, because I cut this at 3, I've still got my first bar. My second bar is repeated, and that's shadowed out because I can't actually physically change that. But my third and fourth bar are back to being grayed in, where I can actually physically manipulate them because we've cut them in that way, okay? So that's giving me my cowbell. Sounds like there's a bit of reverb on it. Let's do the same thing we did before. So I'm still in this track. I hit Instruments, Effects, and let's add big plate reverb. This is a common thing in old vintage studios. Okay, that's not too ostentatious. Let's leave it there, and let's hear what our whole track is sounding like. Okay, sounds pretty good. Is there any more instruments to add? Let's hear. Ah, what was that? Okay, it sounds like some sort of distorted cymbal thing, either a hi-hat or a short choked off crash cymbal, something like that. So we're going to add that into our track. We'll add a new track. And by the way, the reason I'm not just layering these, over top of one another, and actually this might be a good chance just to rename some of these so we've got a good idea of what they are before we lose track. 808 kick. This was our layered snare. And this was our cowbell. So the reason I'm keeping these all as separate tracks right now is twofold. So I've got one reason is that I'm using specific sounds from specific kits in each of these regions. So I need them to be separate in this program rather than having a drum rack that you might find in other digital audio workstations. In this one, I'm keeping them all separate. The second one is that I'm able to maintain individual volume control, automation control over each of these individual tracks. Whereas if I were to change anything, if I would change the volume in our original groove track, it's going to change the whole volume of that kit. Now, I'm going to show you a bit of a workaround toward the end of the video, but that just keep that in mind as we're going. So I'm going to add, again, we're adding this sort of cymbal crash. I'm going to add a new drum and beat. Let's automatically go and make this the clean black kit as well. Why not? So let's see what sounds we can use here. I'll open piano roll. A couple different cymbals. Those are pretty similar. Okay, let's use this note for now, okay? And where does it happen in our bar? Okay, so somewhere in the second bar, let's listen one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Okay, so end of 4 of the second bar. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Okay, so it's going to be on the 8th note in that bar. I'm using this E note. I'm going to draw it in using the pencil tool. So if you've got your cursor, I'm going to use this pencil one here, and it's on this E line, and it's on the and of 2, and on 1, okay? Extend this region. Let's listen. Okay, so it sounds like it's in the right spot. Could be a bit louder. Okay, so what I'm hearing, though, is this sort of extended tail. Whereas these ones are short. You know what? I'm just going to change the instrument here. I think we'd do better with something a little bit more distorted. Let's try this distorted curve. What does that sound like? Okay, well, I already like that better. But we do need to shorten this. So what I'm going to do, because I can't actually gate these or choke them off, and they seem to be sounding pretty long regardless of how long these notes are here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use automation, which is just a volume control to cut these off right after. So where this volume is controlling the entire volume of that track overall, automation is going to be more specific to what point in the song you're actually cutting these off. So I'm going to hit this zigzagging line as a volume automation control. It's going to give me this drop down. I'm going to hit the plus automation, volume. Okay, now I have a horizontal line that's actually representing the volume of that track at each individual measure and point in time. So all I really need to do is cut it off right after these crashes. So I'm going to click on the line. It's going to give me a point. And I want to create a slope. Okay, so I create another point just to the right, and I'm going to pull that down. So let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, do you hear how it cuts off? And then when we loop back, it'll go again. So let's hear what that sounds like. I'm just going to bring the overall volume of the track up over here, and then bring that down again. Okay, so let's hear what this sounds like in context. On the solo. Okay, sounding pretty good. Don't mind that at all. All right, so we've added all the instruments for now that we need to in this track, and I'm not going to get into too much mixing. I'm okay with the reverb. One trick I did want to give you, because I think I just want to hear these kick drums again. So to me, I'm still hearing a little bit too much of the acoustic drum kit on our original groove track. Now, you'll remember when I was talking about why we have all these individual tracks, I can't actually turn this kick drum down on this original groove track without turning all the instruments in that down. And all I'm left with is bass, right? So I want to keep the snare drum and the hi-hat relatively loud. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the piano roll, and I'm going to adjust on the kick drum what's called the velocity. So grab all these kick drum notes here and move your cursor over to the velocity tool. Velocity is something used in computer MIDI language. It's a way that the computer can interpret how hard that note is being sounded. So rather than the speed at which it might be played, which velocity might suggest, it's going to be how hard the computer's reading it. And that's a value that starts at 127. So if I've got the velocity tool clicked, and I were to click on this note, you'll see velocity 127. That means it's at full velocity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start to pull all these notes down. Let's try them at 80. Okay, and you can see that that horizontal bar got a little bit shorter. So now, if I solo just this groove track, the kick drum, I still have the attack of that kick drum. It's still there, but now when I layer my 808, I've got a little bit more of that sounding, but still the attack and punch. So that's just a quick way that you can add a little bit more depth through layering, through manipulating velocity, and we also took a look at some techniques in using automation. So try those out. Try creating your own rhythms and grooves using this. And you can also use all these techniques on melody, harmony instruments. We'll be getting into all of that. But give that a shot and hope that is helpful for you.